Okay, I'll admit, what Jesus says in that passage seems almost impossible. Don't worry about your life. Most of us are quite good at worrying. We worry about work, money. We worry about our children, our families. We worry about the world. We worry about the church. We worry about things we can control, and we worry about many things that we cannot control. Worry, in many ways, is kind of this background noise in the human mind, is it not? So when Jesus says, "Do not worry about your life," it can sound almost unrealistic, as if he is asking us to ignore the very real complexities and responsibilities that we have in living, as if we could ignore the people we know and love who are hurting, as we could ignore what Elizabeth said to us today, as if we could ignore the fragility of our own lives. Still, if we listen a little more carefully, what Jesus is offering here is not denial. It is simplicity. It is a way of living more lightly in the world. He invites his followers to look at birds. They neither sow nor reap. They have no huge storehouse of food, and yet God feeds them. And he tells us to look at the lilies. They do not toil or spin, yet even Solomon and all of Solomon's glory is not arrayed as they are. I love the way the scripture is inviting us to look. Jesus is doing something very pastoral here. He is inviting those of us who feel overwhelmed by the complexity of life to stop and notice the simple things around us. Look at the birds. Look at the flowers. Because when we pay that kind of attention to what is around us for a moment, our worries abate. It's not a complex theology, it's rather an observational theology. It's attention and trust. It's an invitation to living light and to loosen the grip that so many things have on our hearts. Now, there's another way we get fixated on worry. It's all of our stuff. I have thought time and time again about the accumulation of stuff as a very modern problem. And as a matter of fact, most people before the 1900s had very little in the way of possessions. Now we carry more than we need to, and life gets heavier. I don't know if any of you have ever seen the book where somebody asked people to move all of their belongings onto their front lawn and then took pictures of them. And it is just shocking how much stuff we, especially in the Western world, have accumulated. No wonder we are no longer human beings, we are consumers. That is not God's intention for us. My grandfather used to say, property is responsibility. It's not just the idea that what we treasure is connected to where our heart is, it's also that whether the stuff is a treasure or not, it requires our attention. It requires care, it requires cleaning and dusting and insuring and cataloging and storing and rearranging and moving, and when it's time, it requires downsizing. Now, please don't look to me for a good example on this. My mother loved the beauty of things. She was rare in her delighting in it all and paying attention regularly to the stuff in her life. I have so many memories of her doing things like picking up a small object in the house and just feeling it to see how she could delight in it. But I keep a lot of that stuff, not because I delight in it, but because I have memories of her. Now, I need to get rid of some of this, and no wonder Marie Kondo and all the other organizational gurus are in such popular demand right now. We are so confused about what is of real value. Especially if we own it, we're even more confused. There actually is an economic term for this, the endowment effect. Apparently, if I own it, I give it a very high value, much higher than you would give it, and so I become certain that my sofa with a little wear and a dent in a certain part of it and some stains would certainly be of value to someone else. Well, maybe it might be, but probably not. This is always a challenge for churches, too, by the way. People simply drop stuff in the church, old books, furniture, clothing, art supplies, without checking at all, which frustrates us and uses up precious staff time in sorting through other people's detritus. All this is evidence that we really do not know what is of value. Did you know that the value of buying something is very high to us for a short period of time and then tanks rapidly? But take that same amount of money, invest it in an experience or an activity, and the value actually stays high. Spend your money on tickets to the Ogunquit Theater, or book a hotel in Boston and spend a few days at an art gallery, or take that long-considered guided fishing trip. Those things will retain their value, probably because they require our attention. Consider the birds. The truth is, the more crowded our lives become, the harder it is for us to stay spiritually awake. And Jesus talks about this too in that passage. He tells his followers to be ready with lamps lit. That is something that Jesus tells us, to be attentive so we are ready for when Jesus shows up. That kind of attentiveness requires some space mentally and really physically as well. It requires us to be less concerned about the property we own and more concerned about the world around us, the people, the beauty, the creation, the opportunities for service, the chances we get to truly connect with one another. Now, I've known people who have intentionally simplified their lives, not because they were forced to, but because they made choices to do that. Cleaned out rooms that had been filled with things never used, stepped away from commitments that no longer gave them joy, made more space for some quiet reflection and prayer, or long walks, or being present to family, or simply hosting another person for a cup of tea. And what they discovered is something Jesus seemed to understand very well. Simplicity creates space for grace. When life is less crowded, it becomes easier for us to notice what God is already doing. It becomes easier to see the birds and the lilies, easier to recognize that God is already caring for the world and we do not need to pretend we are in control. Jesus is not asking us to abandon the responsibility of life, but Jesus is asking us to consider traveling a little lighter, to loosen our grip on all the things we feel we need to hold on to, whether it's stuff or whether it's worry. To stop the false narrative that we control the world and hence that our worry might spin it right finally. To trust that God cares for us deeply and that we don't need to manage everything. To live into the promise that we can let go of many things and still be whole. And so we are invited into the joy of simplicity, into living lighter, into watching the world as the trees begin to bud, into inviting a neighbor for tea. And when we begin to simplify even just a little bit, we discover something surprising, that we have made room for joy to enter into our lives. We have made room for gratitude. We have made room for grace. So let us make room to notice the quiet and steady presence of God, living lightly, living in the love of God.